on your elevation to this new role. You're now a Prime Minister and a President, but you have always been a strong voice for progressive values around the world. Importantly, I know that we share a commitment to act on climate change, but historically, of course, our great movement has concentrated on issues of rights for working people, issues of justice, making sure that everyone gets their fair share of our nation's economies. We've also been concerned about inequality around the world, making sure that developing nations can enjoy a better standard of living, better healthcare, better education. At the end of the day, too, our movement values opportunity. We want the doors of opportunity to be open wide for all, so that every human being can maximise their opportunity in life. Our movement also seeks to ensure that everyone, regardless of their gender, regardless of their faith, regardless of their sexuality, regardless of whether they have a disability, can all contribute to society and lead a fulfilling life in an equal way. That's what our movement is about. And I so look forward to working with you as the new president of our international organisation to make sure that the change that we seek isn't just national, but goes beyond national boundaries. I have enjoyed working with you up to this point, and I'm sure that will grow even more in your new role. Congratulations.
Dear comrades, I salute the Congress of the International Socialist and I congratulate Pedro for his presidency, new presidency. It is time that our progressive organization do adapt to modern days. Under your leadership, dear Pedro, the International Socialist will become a more dynamic organization, strengthened and more inclusive, when social democrat ideas are more necessary than ever, where extremist, populist ideas and anti-democratic thrive around the world. It is necessary that values such as the fight against climate change, the right of workers and the fight against inequalities, social justice and inclusivity, as well as gender inequality are defended by progressive forces, among which the IS must act as a strong player. In this very moment, it is important that the International Socialists be led by a respected and committed leader, such as Pedro Sánchez. So congratulations, Pedro. We trust you. We trust your work. The IS couldn't have chosen a better leader than you for its organization. Thank you, dear comrade.
National Congress in South Africa. It's a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to greet the delegates of Socialist International at your Congress as you move towards conclusion, and also congratulate my good friend, President Pedro Sánchez, who I've met with on a number of occasions. I extend warm greetings to all of you and also to Socialist International. It is a very important organization that brings together socialists in the world, people and organizations that have the same perspective with regard to important values that we want to promote, which is social justice, respect for human rights, respect for worker rights, and making sure that we have an organization like Socialist International to address the current challenges in the world, challenges such as climate change, inequality, poverty, and unemployment, and to embark on a developmental agenda that is going to address these challenges. So I wish the new leadership of Socialist International well and great strength as you lead this great organization to move forward to help in addressing these challenges based on the values and the principles that we all subscribe to. So good luck and thank you very much.
Dear Pedro, on behalf of the entire Social Democratic Party of Germany, let me congratulate you on your election as the new president of the Socialist International. I would also like to extend my congratulations to Benedicta Lassi as new Secretary General. This election shows that renewal and progress are possible. And I wish you and the entire new SI Presidium all the best for the task ahead. I'm confident that the new Presidium and you, dear Pedro, will succeed in renewing the Socialist International and leading it on a good path. Dear comrades and friends, I wish you a successful Congress, and I am convinced that you will lead the Socialist International to a progressive future. All the best here from Germany, all the best from the Social Democratic Party of Germany.
Step into the open wide. Watch the future come alive. This is our time.
Agradecemos los.
We would like to thank the presidents of Australia, Niger, South Africa, and Germany for the videos that they've sent.
Of Australia, Nigeria, South Africa, and the President of Germany. On remercie les vidéos qui ont envoyé les premiers ministres d'Australie, Niger, Sud-Afrique et les présidents du Allemagne.
Tiene la palabra la secretaria de Política.
We give the floor to the Secretary of Policy of Cooperation and Vice President of Socialist International, Harad.
Muchas gracias. Gracias, presidente. Me gusta. Bienvenidos.
Welcome.
Aquí
Welcome here to this very special Congress to all of us. There are crucial moments in the life of a person, and in my case, this is one of these crucial moments. Summarizing in a few minutes all the things that I wanted to say is truly complicated. I grew up with a father with deep socialist convictions, and therefore this taught me the necessary values to think always about those who need us more, and with a mother with a motto that said that being humble is an actual gift. So thank you very much for being here by my side. More than a year ago, President Pedro Sánchez appointed me as President of International Policy and Cooperation in the Socialist Party of Spain. This is a position of which I feel really proud. Since then, we've been working very intensely to come to today, with many trips, with many conversations and negotiations with people in different countries, in different worlds, with different cultures, different regions, different people and parties that made up this big socialist family, Social Democrat and Labour family that we are at Socialist International. Thank you very much to all of you for making of this organization the great organization that it is, and for making this the Congress of the People. Thank you very much. Congratulations, President. We are very excited about this new area that opens us with your participation and your capacity to change things. Thank you for counting on me for this project. We must not forget that no matter how much do we want to change things, unless you have by your side courageous people that empower you and who trust you, being able to do changes is very difficult. Pedro Sánchez believes in the change of transformation, and I think that this is going to take Socialist International to its highest points in history. Life can only be understood looking back, but it needs to be lived looking forward, and that's what you represent. You are the upcoming socialism. Spanish socialists are really proud to have you as a leader, and I would like to take advantage of this occasion to thank UC, our brother parties, the Socialist International of Women, and the delegates of all the parties that are represented in this Congress, even those who couldn't make it. I would like to thank President Papandreou for the work that they did in the past, as well as Luis Ayala. No one knows Socialist International as well as you do. Also, I want to thank Wafa, who was the chairwoman of in Socialist International of Women for 8 years. Janet, I'm sure that you will follow her and will do a great job after her with the rest of the progressist families. I also like to congratulate all the vice presidents who were chosen in this Congress. Benedicta Lasses, dear Secretary General, we've gone through a very intense week of work. I would like to thank you for the efforts that you've made, and above all, for your smile. You're always smiling, and this is something that we always appreciate. I feel really proud because for the first time we have an African woman as Secretary General of Socialist International. Congratulations. Congratulations. This is something that we feel really proud of. We are sending with you a message to the world, a message about the equality policies, about women holding relevant positions. It is a message of inclusion, but it's one extra thing that I would like to say here today. We are the visible faces, but for us to have secretary generals, to have presidents, vice presidents, and for all this machinery to work, we also need some indispensable people. We need all the workers of the Socialist International. I would like to thank Latifa Perry for her job, the Socialist Party in Spain, my coordinator Carlota, those who do magic in Ferrat, public events, press department, security, all the things that are happening today is thanks to them. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it is not only the lights, the screens, the videos, making everything on time, having a great coordination. It's all of us who make shows, who cry when we're together under pressure. Thanks to this, it is easier to do our job, and to our agendas and our collective success makes us being socialists out of convention. We still have many common projects ahead of us with many challenges such as inequality, climate change, labor rights, fostering feminism, reinforcing our democracy and our freedoms. But above all, what we have ahead of us is to implement the right to empathy, being always to be empathic to those who do not have the same opportunities that we do, maybe because they were born in a different place or with a family that was more vulnerable than ours. And the life has set up the conditions so that he couldn't fulfill a great life. But we have to be empathic. We have to support them, and we have to support the ideals that will make us being passionate, because only passions can change the world. I feel really proud of being here, starting with the presentation of this event, and I'm really proud of presenting the next speaker, dear former President of Spain, Zapatero. Our dear President Zapatero, I've always described him as our big ambassador in favor of peace, with full convictions, I have to thank as Pedro Sánchez that always believed in me, because I'm a diverse woman in a world of stereotypes in which it is important to have men like you that will empower us. And so, as I said before, it's not easy to prove that what you can do unless you're given the opportunity to prove it. President, the man who started with being conquests such as the law for equality or gay marriage, and a great reference for the left parties in the whole world, where we have many things to thank you for, but above all, we thank you because you are every time that we need you, always with the socialist family. Thank you very much, President Zapatero. Now I'm going to give you the floor with a sentence of your favorite writer, Borges, who says, I think that we have to conquer words by living those words, and you always live your words. We always live by your words. Thank you very much, dear President. Thank you very much. I have to say that being given the floor in this event means a wonderful gift for me, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is another moment in which I can show my loyalty, my commitment, my fidelity to the Spanish Socialist Party with 143 years of history. And history always comes with many important days that mean a before and an after, that rectify history, that opens up new paths, new horizons, that give rise to transformations. This November 27th is one of those dates. They are already part of the history of the Socialist Party in Spain, because nothing can make feel prouder to the Spanish Socialist Party than having a comrade such as Pedro Sánchez being the president of Socialist International. The history of this old party, the PSOE, the second socialist party, oldest in the world, is a history very much linked to Socialist International. Is a history that in the worst and in its best moment received the support of Socialist International. I think that when you are grateful in a sincere manner, your gratitude stays there forever. And forever, we must appreciate the support of countries from all over the world, from Latin America, such as Argentina, Mexico, Venezuela, Uruguay, countries from Europe, France, Germany, Switzerland, who welcome many Spaniards that have to run away during our dictatorship. They went on exile, and we will always be grateful for that. And we will always remember that. And we will always remember the support of the European socialists from Greece, from Germany. They supported our democratic transition. They helped to make of the Socialist Party the first political party in our country, and we will always show our gratitude for that. And today I feel really proud of our government, Pedro, your government, because with the law for democratic memory, you are definitively honoring so many who gave their lives, the best of themselves, for the freedom and the democracy that we now enjoy in Spain, in the exile and also here. And this could have only be done by the Socialist Party of Spain. It was our obligation, in fact. And this was one of the things that we fulfill forever. That will be part of your footprint. And that will be a reward for you in the future, over time. We all have the feeling of living an important day in our lives. You see that in your faces, in the way that you're looking at us, in the passion that you show. Today is not a normal day, it's a relevant day. It's not that we're having a new Socialist International. It's the Socialist International again, with all our historical strength, with the leadership that we've always had in the world. And we have to tell to all our comrades, starting with Pedro Sánchez, that we feel grateful. We recognize you all for taking this step that it is honest and shows your commitment and your leadership. Because apart from the work that you already have at the head of the Spanish government, you are holding out a great responsibility. Socialist International is the most important political international organization. It's been the most important one in the 20th century in the whole wide world, and it needs to be the most important one in the 21st century. It is our responsibility under your leadership, under our leadership. We need to build a political international sphere as we've always dreamt about by all of the socialists, those who are the sons and daughters of the enlightenment, of rationale, of knowledge, of dignity, of human rights. We have the responsibility of building an international political community in the 21st century that is a global 21st century, but it is polarized, divided. unequal, not up to the dreams of many generations of the 21st century when they saw the Berlin Wall collapsing, when we fulfill some of our objectives, when we establish the Millennium Objectives. So now we have new responsibilities, the one of an international political community, an international community political family based on the defense of peace, of a world order of peace. Peace is the task that we have ahead of us. Words will always be stronger than the physical force, always. And we must always remember about the meaning of dialogue. The best solutions of conflicts in history have come hand in hand with dialogue, understanding, and peace. And this international political family has to become stronger. And we have to create a program, a strong program that we all support, that we are loyal to, linked with the Sustainable Development Goals. We want a new, younger generation to achieve that objective, so that Sustainable Development Goals are binding commitments in international agreements. We need to commit ourselves with these objectives, which are basic, so that people can live in dignity. We can eradicate extreme poverty. We can extend education and health to everyone universally, so people can work with decent contracts and get their pensions. Haven't our civilization achieved enough a degree as to achieve these Sustainable Development Goals? Of course we have. Of course we have the possibility of achieving these. This is not an utopian. Those who raised their voice against a slavery that lasted for centuries, writing one of the worst pages in history in Africa and in other continents. We owe so much to Africa. The first one fighting slavery were considered utopians. The first one fighting in favor of the right of women that have just started, Benedicta, or the rights of homosexuals, were considered utopians or crazy people, always under danger. But now our generation has the obligation to try to pursue the Sustainable Development Goals, and no one like Socialist International, led by Pedro Sánchez, who's proven in his government to provide the most social stage in the Spanish democracy. That needs to be our commitment. And we need to reaffirm our values. We need to learn to actively listen for the movements that have provided the most. Socialist International needs to be the most feminist international organization. We have to defend LGBTQ+ rights. We must defend individual rights, fundamental rights. That's our destiny. That's our fate. This is our historical commitments, being at the forefront of freedoms, of culture, of the defense of real policy, defending dialogue, defending words. We see this in the whole wide world. Citizens suffer when we see in our government, in the House of Respect and Education, the tremendous insults that we're listening nowadays. The more they insult us, the more that we have to fight back with culture and education. The more sexism, the more feminism. With poetry, with a poem every time they insult us, every time they try to create hatred. Hatred requires to fight back with patience and culture. Every time we hear the ultra-right parties that are not tolerant in our Congress and they speak, let's give them a poem. One from Gloria Fuertes, for example. Not bad, Gloria Fuertes, a Spanish poet.
Ahí va, ahí va. Lamer la piel de la persona a la que se ama.
Licking the skin of the person that you love, licking a dish, licking a stump. Let's use only our tongue for these things, for everything but to hurt. Thank you. That's the poem by Gloria Fuertes. We did our best to translate it into English. And that's the task of Socialist International. We recognize ourselves in Socialist International, and we thank all the comrades for all the continents for trusting the leader of the Spanish Socialist Party, Pedro Sánchez. We'll always take that into consideration, and we will reinforce our links. We'll support all the ones that have supported us. We will support the women who need it most, the people who need it most, for example, in Afghanistan or in Iran. Those are the women that we need to support decisively so they can obtain their freedom. Because if we are aware in the areas where we have the more tyrannic systems is where women are mostly oppressed. That's the freedom that they want to damage, that they want to hurt. And I keep thinking that the most transformative tasks, the one that produces more social changes, the one that contributes more to peace, equity, equality, is the equality and the parity between men and women. That what has helped us more in the last 100 years, and that's what we have to fight for in the coming decades. That will help us a lot. But us men must not forget that whenever we talk about equality between men and women, and when we talk about women's rights, this is not something that we're granting them, as it may seem in some of the debates. No, that's not it. Women equality, men and women equality is not something that we're granting. It's something that belongs to them. They're owed that right. And we need to change our mindset. 800 million people suffer in the world. They are starving. And this is something that we have to take into consideration at Socialist International. That must be one of our main concerns. And maybe in this economically global society, we have to wonder if it's possible to establish, or if it's necessary to establish, a limit to wealth. Because unfortunately, there is no limits for poverty in the world. Maybe we have to open up the debate for the limits to wealth. I'm sure that it will happen, and I hope that it is Socialist International the one that anticipates that debate. It is our obligation to anticipate this debate. Dear comrades, in fact, it is Socialist International, again, with its full strength, with its historical, with its history, with its socialist thoughts that have contributed most to the noble ideas of democracy, universal education, decent healthcare for everyone, fighting always for equality, because our civilization, because mankind, because our capacity for moral growth, when it's strong, it always goes back to the roots of equality. This is, us being equal is what makes a society, a country, a community more credible, more solid, and stronger. We've always differentiated ourselves by our solidarity. We feel proud of our history because we have always been by the side of those who needed it most. And that's why, Hannah, I wanted to say that you have done an exemplary work in order to foster this new stage at Socialist International. And if things have worked out really well, it's because a comrade with an open mind in favor of diversity, internationality, has worked for it. I'm sure that Hannah's parents cannot be prouder. Dear comrade Pedro Sánchez, dear comrades of the Presidium, I feel proud, I feel recognized, like millions of men and women in the whole world who's taken a look or want to look back or look at Socialist International. And we must be more socialist than ever and more international than ever. Versus these right-wing parties that are not aware of the global problems, that are not sensitized to our global problems. We have to work in a humble way. We have to be humble. We are humble because we are surrounded by the universe, but let's put these big values that are renewed now, that we defend, that we explain with our full passion and conviction. I think that a socialist that it is convinced of his values is an unbeatable socialist. That's why, dear comrade Pedro, I congratulate you. I congratulate my dear friend Yorgos Papandreou, an honest and brilliant man, a dear friend of Spain and of the Spanish Socialist Party. And congratulations and thank you to Luis Ayala for the work that he's done, always close to the colleagues of the Spanish Socialist Party and of so many people in the whole wide world. Benedicta is our hope, our new hope, an African woman, young woman. She represents everything. And Pedro, millions of socialists in the world, men and women, trust you. That comes with a great responsibility, but our obligation is to support you unconditionally, being by your side, following your leadership, because you've proven to be courageous and honest. Thank you.
Tiene la palabra la presidenta de la Internacional Socialista de Mujeres,
We now give the floor to Janet Camilo, the president of the Socialist International Women.
Tremendo reto hablar después del presidente Zapatero.
So it's a big challenge to speak after President Zapatero. So, President, thank you for being a feminist. Dear colleagues, as you know, I come from the Dominican Republic, a country placed right in the heart of the Caribbean. For a long time, the Dominicans have been taught that we are a very special country, and some historical facts lead us to believe it. Our capital, for example, Santo Domingo, is the first city of America. The Autonomous University of Santo Domingo is the first one in the New World. In the conquests of women, my country has also had a special place. It was the Dominican, Minerva Bernardino, who managed to get the United Nations to recognize the right of women to elect and be elected. The International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women is a tribute to the Mirabal sisters, 3 Dominican women, Patria, Minerva, Maria Teresa, originally from Salcedo, my homeland. They gave their life and the fight for freedom and democracy. And every November 25th, they remind us that we do not need to lose our hope. And despite killing many women in the world, like Minerva, they'll raise their arms behind the tombstones and will be stronger every day. Because if they touch one woman, they'll be touching every woman. So I'd like to thank José Francisco Peña Gómez, a leader of the Socialist International, and to my party, the Dominican Revolutionary Party, which was the first party in Latin America to establish in their statutes a participation quota for women in elective positions and party leaderships. That, thanks to my president, Miguel Vargas Maldonado, that became gender parity. President Miguel Vargas, thanks for your support, and also to the party members who are here. That's why, as a woman, as a Dominican, and as a feminist, it has been a great honor for me to be elected here as the first Latin America in the presidents of the Socialist International Women. And I was saying that Dominicans have believed and have grown, thinking that we have a very special country. But when we get to know the reality of the world, the current world, especially regarding the rights of women, we notice that we have a long way ahead and many challenges to get over. Recently, the World Bank published a report detailing the big gap existing between men and women. So I'd like to share some figures, because men speak in figures and women need to speak to learn in figures. 2.4 billion women of working age do not have equal economic opportunities. In 86 countries, women face some sort of labor restriction. In 95 countries do not guarantee equal pay for work of equal value. Of the 193 states recognized by the UN, only 12 have legal parity between genders. And they are all members of the OECD. As we can see, the scenario for women around the world keeps being difficult, and it is full of complexities associated to religion, aspect, ethnicity and sexual preference. The work ahead of us is hard, dear President Pedro. I know that on many occasions the socialist women, social democratic and Labour women who make up the International will be tempted to think that the longed for equality between men and women will continue to be a dream. But you know what? I prefer to focus on what we can do together to turn each obstacle into yet another step towards the equality goal. The gender gap is enormous, but it is equally true that we live in a society that is increasingly aware of the importance of closing that gap for good. That's why I leave this Congress full of hope in this new stage of the Socialist International, because Pedro Sánchez is a convinced leader, determined to give more participation and more power to women. And above all, he raises in his speech the need for the Socialist International to assume with firmness, determination and courage the flag of equality between men and women. Furthermore, I'm happy for having a committed woman to women's rights as Benedicta Lassi in the General Secretariat of the Socialist International. It really gives us a full guarantee that the voice of socialism to defend women will be heard more strongly than ever. I have learned that sorority means being thankful and grateful. I'd like to thank some brave and bold women that have put it all at stake to be here. I'd like to thank Pian Locatelli, the Honorary President of the Socialist International. In the 12 years that we have been here, she's also been a supporting reference in my international political career. I'd like to thank Peggy Corral-Viuda de Peña Gómez. Thank you, Miss Peggy, because in the Democratic Dominican Republic, your voice and your hand has always allowed me to continue every day and not falter. I'd like to thank our former president, Wafa Haifa, who in 10 years chairing the Socialist International has encouraged us to keep working through the COVID times for socialist women to keep advancing in the agenda for equality. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Hannah, whom I met only a few months ago, but she has been a solitary mentor, implementing sorority and promoting our protagonism, both for Benedict and myself, so that you may have us here today, sharing and living together in this social democracy. Thank you, Hannah. And I end these words full of joy. And as Nelson Mandela once said, I go back to the Dominican Republic more than optimistic, full of hope, and sure that social democracy is the only way towards equality. And equality is the only way that guarantees the future. Socialism, the socialism that's coming with Pedro Sánchez, the upcoming socialism, is either feminist or is not socialism. In that way, the colleagues, delegates, comrades and members of the Presidium who have in Pedro Sánchez someone who is committed with equality, and in me, someone who will work hand in hand to defend women's rights and keep advancing, so that the delegations from each country, we not see what happened in this Congress. Delegations full of men, with 3, 4 and 5 men. And I often wonder whether in your countries tickets for women are more expensive than plane tickets for men. And I am sure and I leave sure that this, President Pedro, will not happen again, because you and the Presidium will help us to lobby so that in the next Congress and Council, if there's no parity, at least we should have 40-60 as delegations like the ones presented by my country in these events. So, dear women, let's keep working. No one said it'd be easy. Alone, we're invisible, but together we cannot be defeated. Thank you so much.
Vamos a dar paso ahora a los...
So now we'll give the floor to Antonio Costa, Prime Minister of Portugal, Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, and Edi Rama, Prime Minister of Albania.
Portugal's Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand's Prime Minister, and Edi Rama, Albania's Prime Minister. Voyons maintenant les salutations d'Antonio Costa, Premier ministre de Portugal, Jacinda Ardern, Premier ministre de la Nouvelle-Zélande, et Edi Rama, Premier ministre de l'Albanie.
Compañeras y compañeros, quiero saludar.
Dear comrades, I'd like to greet you for the work we've done in the last few days in Madrid. We're leaving Madrid with a new leadership and with a new boost by Benedicta, but also with a new willingness to keep developing the Socialist International and to update our actions and our values and our ability to bring together all the people who in the world keep defending and applying progressist ideas. Truth, freedom, democracy, social equality and solidarity. Nowadays we have great global challenges, and climate change is the first one. And we have learned that only with a joint action globally we can respond to the global challenges. That's why, more than ever, we need to have a powerful organization, such as the Socialist International, that ensures for everyone that the change will be done fairly and in agreement with the values of social democracy and democratic socialism in the world. Dear colleagues, dear Pedro, congratulations and keep up the good work.
My warmest congratulations to my friend President Pedro Sánchez on his election as President of the Socialist International. We as nations are facing significant challenges in our recovery from COVID-19, alongside, of course, the need to address persistent challenges such as inequality, the need to continue to progress workers' rights, climate change. These are all issues that I know collectively we can find solutions for as a progressive family. Pedro, I wish you well in your new leadership role. Fantastic to have you in such an important role at this critical time. Look forward to seeing you all again soon.
It is with great pleasure and great honor that I attended this historic Congress of the International Socialists and supported with all the comrades the candidacy of Pedro Sánchez as our new president and of Benedicta as our new Secretary General. Pedro Sánchez is the right man in the right time and in the right place to prove that right is wrong. This is what I believe, as I believe also that Pedro can open a new path for the next generation. If the left has always been the place where the next generation has found its place in the new world, now we need to make sure that this world we are living and this world that's changing dramatically in daily basis is not a place where the next generation can be lost, but it's a place where the next generation should really take over. And for that, the International Socialists, under the leadership of Pedro Sánchez, can be absolutely the right space to build an academy, a space where the next leaders meet with the previous ones, where the next challenges meet with the previous experiences, and where there is a bit more of quality time for a real conversation instead of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and all this shit. Thank you.
Tiene la palabra la secretaria general de la Internacional.
We now give the floor to the Secretary of the Socialist International, Benedicta Lassi.
Thank you very much. I'm honored. First of all, let me say a very big thank you to the President of PSOE, Comrade Pedro Sánchez, for putting together this amazing Congress. Thank you very much. I also want to thank all members of the PSOE for giving us such a warm hospitality in Madrid. We are most grateful for your hospitality, and we will go back having memories of this Congress as one of the amazing congresses of the SI. I want to make a special mention of a woman who has stood by me through this journey. who has supported me and encouraged me, given me the confidence and urging me on that indeed I can make it, that indeed I can be Secretary General of the Socialist International. She stood by me through thick and thin, and I want you to join me in thanking Comrade Hannah Jalul. It is women like her that ensures that when they go through the door, they hold the door open for other women to come after them. And I'm grateful. I also want to thank my dear Carlota for her support, encouragement, helping me with translations of all my documents and guiding me through this process. To Lucia, to Jorge, I call him George, pardon me, and also to Victor of the youth movement and all members of the office of the PSOE party who have supported me in getting to this point. But let me also make a special thanks to my party, the Great National Democratic Congress of Ghana. Who have nurtured me all these years, given me the political experience I needed to be able to stand before you today and confidently speak as Secretary General of Socialist International. I'm grateful for believing in me as a young comrade, as a young woman, and ensuring that I receive the necessary support in making this possible. And I want to thank all member parties here and those who could not join us for your support through support letters, through words of encouragement, but also for those here for taking your time to joining us at this Congress and making it a success. Thank you very much. And indeed, I want to thank the outgoing leadership, our former President, George Papandreou, for your amazing work for the Socialist International, and Luis Ayala, for your commitment to this organization. Indeed, I met Luis Ayala for the very first time in 2016 in Ghana. And I told him that, yes, I was the vice president of UC at the time, but I'm planning to contest for the position of president of UC. And he was encouraged. He encouraged me and was surprised. Little did I know that I would be succeeding him as Secretary General of Socialist International. Thank you, Luis, for your support in this journey. My dear colleagues, we have indeed renewed the soul of socialism. And it is up to us now, as we leave here, to go to our various countries as member parties of socialism to renew that commitment in our countries. We have said what needs to be said. We have heard our colleagues cry for solidarity, for support, and we have said we are committed to this cause as Socialist International. And it is this renewed commitment that we would uphold the values of inclusion, of equality, of respect for human rights and dignity. For our individual and collective efforts in ensuring global peace and security, gender equality, the eradication of poverty, the fight against injustice, climate change, democracy, and guaranteeing of equal opportunity is what the world needs from us today. This is what defines our commitment to humanity. The promotion of multilateral world is critical today, given the ongoing peace and security crisis and a dangerous retreat from multilateralism. We need to harness our collective commitments in ensuring that we succeed in our fight. Today, we have an African as Socialist International Secretary General. We have a woman as Secretary General of the Socialist International. Today, we have a young girl from Saint-Cyr Agomenya in Ghana who has been given the opportunity to serve the SI at this critical moment. Indeed, it is an honor, but it is a responsibility. A responsibility to ensure that I represent the voices of my fellow women who are not here with me as Secretary General or who are not Secretary General, and my dear Africans who for many years have fought for equal opportunity. It is my responsibility to ensure that the voices of Africans are held around the world. Indeed, the coming years are critical for our organization, and working with my president, your president, Comrade Pedro Sánchez, and the Presidium, we will find answers even under very extreme circumstances. Whether it's the challenges of democracy in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea, or the security challenges in the Democratic Republic of Congo or Chad, we will be there. Whether it is the challenge of democracy, climate change in Haiti, Venezuela, Peru, we will be there. And whether it is the solidarity with the women of Iran or Palestine, or the security challenges in Syria and the Kurdish people, in our fight for the end of the war in Ukraine, we will be there. Working with my president, I will ensure that the Socialist International is a responsive organization and responds to the concerns of member parties. I want to give you my word that in all regions, in our various committees, our commitment in ensuring that this renewed spirit in the Socialist International is felt all over the world. We would guarantee you that. Indeed, my election as the first African Secretary General is testament and recognition to the hard work that member parties from the region have been doing these past years. And I want to thank you, all my African colleagues here, and to assure you that the SI has not and will not forget about the challenges that confront our continent. We will work closely with all committees to ensure that in all regions we find solutions to our political challenges. I leave here today motivated by the sacrifices of the former Secretary General, Comrade Luis Ayala. For 33 years, he has served this great organization. And I want to give a special recognition to him as I assume this role. Kindly join me in giving him a standing ovation. I look forward to benefiting from his esteemed experience in the SI, and also our former president, Comrade George Papandreou. I am excited about the work ahead, and I indeed look forward to working with the Presidium members and, most importantly, our president, Comrade Pedro Sánchez, to foster the cooperation we need around the world in driving home our points as progressives, as socialists, as social democratic parties, and as labor parties around the world. We cannot fail the people. We must leave here committing individually to our renewed Socialist International. Indeed, this is the upcoming socialism, and together we shall succeed. Thank you very much. We gather here today from different continents, different countries, and different political parties, believing that our collective efforts and voices matter.
Que el destino de las naciones.
The destiny of nations is not written. It will always be possible to move forward. And progress always comes hand to hand with social democracy, labour and democratic socialism. I take on this responsibility with a determined compromise. It is to achieve that altogether will make the Socialist International the great common course of world progressive thought and action. Thank you so much.
Compañeras, compañeros.
Dear colleagues, we now give the floor to the President of the Socialist International, Pedro Sánchez.
Gracias, compañeros.
Thank you, dear comrades. Thank you, Hannah, for your wonderful work. Thank you also to Janet for her goals, setting up these wonderful goals. You will always have me by your side as a feminist president of the Socialist International. Thank you, Benedicta, for your example, and thank you, for José Luis, for your kind words. May your legacy as the president of the government be a source of inspiration for us socialists whenever we have the honor to be able to represent the progressives from Spain in institutions. So thank you, José Luis, for all the work that you carried out and that you continue on carrying out in favor of democratic socialism. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I've always been clear about one thing. See, more than 30 years ago, I became a member of the Socialist Party because we are a moment in the historical course of socialism, and in consequence, we are a moment in the life of the political parties that represent socialism. And with this, although this is a moment in the history of our parties, no matter where we live, are belonging to the parties that are part of Socialist International explain our life to a certain extent. In my case, the Socialist Party, represented here by their management and many workers to whom I want to thank, in my case, as I was saying, the Socialist Party has been a school of life in which to grow politically, humanly, and morally. And therefore, dear comrades, dear delegates coming from all over the world, allow me that in a day full of emotions, I dedicate my first words to the greatest treasure of the Socialist Party in Spain, their militants, their members. That is why, dear comrades, in your behalf and in behalf of all the Spanish Socialist members, I assume the presidency of the Socialist International as Secretary General of the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. And to all the delegates, to the comrades of the outgoing leadership, I can only thank you for your support in facing this challenge. I will dedicate all my hard work and effort to one goal: to repay the enormous amount of trust that you place in me. And I would like to do so giving a very, very special thanks, a sincere thanks to Yorgos Papandreou and Luz Enjala, who've devoted part of the last year to the strengthening of Socialist International. I know that Yorgos will continue on helping us as an honorary president, and Luis will continue on helping us as a high commissioner of the Socialist International and a special advisor for the presidency of Socialist International. You're also indispensable in this new era for Socialist International. And in this responsibility, I will do my utmost to offer new progressive responses to major global challenges, in strengthening an organization whose voice needs to be heard and taken into account in the world, an organization that reunites, and this is going to be the purpose of the new presidium, reuniting all progressive internationalist movements, because we are the home of all the socialist, social democratic, and progressive forces in the world. A Socialist International that, as Janet was saying, embraces gender equality outwardly, as we always do, expressing our solidarity and fraternity with women in Afghanistan or Iran, but also inwardly, in our own home, guaranteeing gender parity and equality between all the comrades of Socialist International. Many comrades probably do not know me personally. We will have the opportunity to talk and work jointly, but I come from a generation that benefited from the advances of amazing socialist governments in the world, like the government of Felipe González or José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, governments that, in my opinion, under my perspective, led the greatest advances in Spain's recent history, governments that laid the foundations for a strong welfare state, the one that we enjoy today, and that protected us when COVID-19 emerged. And I'm saying all this to tell to the other comrades coming from different parts of the world that in Spain, the acronyms of the Socialist Party and the development of democracy are inseparable, because all the great social rights achievements in our democracy have always come from the hand of the Socialist Party of Spain, all of them. And when doing this, I have to say that this was possible because we had other comrades from other geographical places for other countries that helped us in our struggle, help us to settle the democracy in our country, as said by José Luis in his speech. Great socialist leaders and parties in Europe believed in this young, threatened democracy at that time for the real threat of involution, and they helped us to consolidate democracy in Spain. Giants such as Olo Palme or Willy Brandt, important members of Socialist International, who in 1980 held this Congress here in Madrid with a firm purpose that democracy should finally take root in Spain. That country, as I was saying before, although threatened by the risk of regression, overcame fears to look ahead with hunger for the future and the optimism of those rulers, those social democratic leaders who believe in a Spanish democracy coming from all over the place. They help us to grow and to believe. Together, we made possible an old dream that had been dreamt since the experience of the Second Republic before the Civil War and the Franco dictatorship, is that no one will ever again rob these people of his right to be free. And that's why in the history of Spanish democratic socialism, we cannot forget the image of a Swedish prime minister, piggy bank in hand, collecting fund for Spanish Democrats in exile. Or how can we forget, dear comrades, the demonstrations all over Europe against the last barbaric acts of Francoism? Or how can we forget the support of socialists from so many countries, as said before by José Luis, for the Spanish exiles? Spain will always remember this exercise of solidarity by European social democracy and the whole world in the defense of our freedom and our democracy, because we are the country that we've become also thanks to progressive internationalism. And that's why we always have to remember the aid that we received more than 40 years ago, and that's why we want to help today others in the world along the path of freedom, democracy, and the defense of human rights. We forge our collective memory with symbolic experiences in distant countries and continents. A while ago, I was in New York celebrating the 50th anniversary of the speech given by Salvador Allende before the UN Assembly. And I'm saying this because we forge our collective memory with symbolic experience in distant countries and continents, because we are united in addition to our passion for liberty and equality that's been mentioned here, that are consubstantial to the French Revolution. And we are united by the last of these principles, which is the one of fraternity. Every 25th of April, this is known very well by our Portuguese comrades with whom we share our Iberian Peninsula. Every 25th of April, many Spanish radio stations play Grándola Vila Morena, and we evoke the Carnation Revolution in that Lisbon spring that was the prelude to our own. Today in Lisbon, tomorrow in Madrid, and our fathers and mothers. Every September 11th, dear Chilean colleagues, we remember Salvador Allende, and we are moved by his call to walk the great avenues along which the free man will once again make his way. These are dates in the calendar that cross borders and that we feel as our own, irrespective of when the event happened, because they feed a shared narrative that unites us. And that is the power of fraternity for the global progressive movement, which is an organization and bodies like no other. Comrades, There's one thing that I'm clear about, even more so after being a militant of the Socialist Party for more than 30 years, is that being left-wing is a character trait. That is why it's so necessary that in complex times such as these, we promote the values of common sense, in my opinion, which are the values of social democracy. Just an figure that has been mentioned here during the different interventions in the Congress. Last November 15, the world passed the 8 billion population mark. The question that we must ask ourselves is not whether if there is capacity to feed, to educate, care for, protect, and provide security for the whole of humanity. The question is, what are we doing wrong so that something like this not happen? We're already 8 billion human beings on Earth. Some say there are too many of us, but the problem is not to having too many human beings. The problem is that we lack humanity. In a world marked by geopolitical competition and predatory capitalism, appealing to a multilateral agenda, as it's been done here by Janet and our Secretary General Benedicta, appealing to multilateral agenda and a global collective action is a duty that social democracy must assume as a genuine principle in this new stage that we're beginning now. Not only because cooperation is a more valuable instinct than competition, because it's in our DNA, the defense of multilateralism. If we look back to Socialist International, this organization was not a contributor, not another contributor, but the greatest contributor to UN, to its growth and to its development. And that is why, dear comrades, it is necessary to strengthen and renew our link between the Socialist International and the UN, because these more suitable forum to combat these global threats that do not stop at customs. Our internationalism is the best possible antidote to the short-sighted politics of trenches and borders. Today, with the retreat of a neoliberalism that it was only interested in globalizing capital and markets, it is the Socialist International calls to globalize rights and freedom, to globalize climate justice, to globalize equality between men and women, to globalize democracy, peace, and human dignity. That globalization was deliberately ignored by those who led the world to a disaster a decade ago, the same people who folded themselves and collected their profits to hide it under a web of opacity in tax havens, those who, under the disguise of deregulation, consented forms of semi-slavery in the field of labor, the merchants of doubts, allied of post-truth to slow down the ecological transition, knowing that the time to act on climate change was running out. Those were the ones who privatized obscene profits and socialized losses to take the world into a devastating crisis. And this is the legacy of ashes and a decade lost to progress because of the financial crisis. And what do we need to do? In view of this legacy, we need to face this with an alternative, a social democrat alternative that is brave enough. This Socialist International has to be more international and more socialist than ever. And this is what we're doing here in Spain. And I thank José Luis for his words, because we have just approved new state budgets in Spain that are very social, and new taxes to large corporations, social justice and tax justice. Obviously, the right and the far right opposed us, but in face of their noise, their insults, their blockades, we are moving forward. And we move forward because we protect people. We are moving because thanks to the EU funds, we are capable of strengthening our economic growth. We're advancing because we ask for big corporations to make more efforts while we relieve the social majority of the Spaniards. Spain is moving because we give stability to our country and its people at the time when it's needed the most. It is the time for the upcoming socialism. This is the upcoming socialism. 100 years ago, this organization raised its voice for peace in the world. Days before the assassination of Jean Jaurès, he called on all of the workers of the world to unite to drive away the horrible nightmare. On the eve of the First World War, only Socialist International tried to stop the catastrophe with a desperate appeal for peace. We know the lessons of history, and we know also the price to pay when people allow themselves to be dragged into the brutality of war. That is why we have the duty, the obligation to make a global appeal for peace. We have to become activists for a renewed pacifism based on the defense of international legality. It is always others who fuels the hatred that leads to war. Social democracy has been always on the side of solutions and on the side of peace. Putin's invasion of Ukraine shows us the relevance of preserving rules-based international order based on the respect for territorial integrity of states and the right to their freedoms to choose what they want to be in the future. We've built institutions to settle conflicts without resorting to violence. We forge a democracy of peace to put words before force. Every war, absolutely every war, every conflict, whether in Ukraine or anywhere else in the world, is a crime against humanity. And that's why we must open the time for diplomacy. It is time to respect international law. It is time for peace. It is time to end the war in Ukraine and everywhere else. And from Socialist International, we will work to put an end to Putin's invasion of Ukraine and the cessation of all the conflicts in the rest of the world. That's where we will be. Comrades, I would like to summarize our proposal in the 5 areas of work that we have discussed in this Congress during these last days. Firstly, mentioned by Benedicta, our dear Secretary General, is the fight against the climate emergency, working for a just ecological transition, as expressed by our UN Secretary General and former President of Socialist International. The choice is to cooperate. We either cooperate or we will perish. And it is inconceivable that in the face of scientific evidences, there are political forces, political movements that choose to deny and perish. But it is not enough to oppose the inertias that leads us to climate catastrophe. We must take a step forward and be clear, because the greed of only a few can lead humanity towards self-destruction. And that's why I ask you to put your feet on the wall to fight the climate emergency, because the fight towards the climate emergency is the only possible investment in the future. There's a tremendous injustice, and I'm looking towards Africa. There is a tremendous, almost existential injustice in that the countries most affected by climate emergency suffer for the actions of the most developed economies. And I'm thinking about Africa, but also, Miguel, I'm thinking about Central America. The 58 most exposed countries, the most exposed ones, home to 1/5 of the world's population, are responsible for just 5% of the emissions of greenhouse effect gases. The 54 countries on the African continent emit just over 3% of global emissions. And yet, despite this, they suffer on the front line the consequences of a devastation that we have the duty to prevent on behalf of our sons and daughters. Secondly, Dear comrades, we have to put an end to male chauvinism, as José Luis was saying. We have to be more feminist, because feminism, like socialism, is internationalist. And I don't understand this ideological discrepancy. When talking about real and effective equality between men and women, it's just a matter of human rights. This is talking about human rights. Feminism is talking and defending human rights. And that's why there is no just cause more important than the defense of real and effective equality between men and women. Just one figure to the men here. A woman dies a violent death every 11 minutes in the world. In face of such barbarism, the firmness of social democracy must be as resolute as our determination to put an end to this infamy. Gender-based violence and sexual imputation are an intolerable attacks on human dignity. That's what we have to raise our voice. And we have to have effective public policies to nip the bud of a violence that stems from male privilege. José Luis approved the first equality law between men and women in the democratic history in Spain, or with the first gender-based violence law. And we've taken this legacy and we've approved a state pact. And there was only one party that was out of it, the ultra-right party. Shame on them. Shame on them, and we have to feel proud of what we've done. And against this privilege, against this fanaticism, we're seeing women in Iran fight, and also in Afghanistan. And from Socialist International, gathering all the progressive forces in the world, I want to pay tribute to their courage, and I want to honor the cry for freedom that no tyrant will ever be able to stop. And I want to tell them, dear comrades, you're not alone. You're not alone. Today, more than ever, socialism represents freedom. The great revolution of our time is the feminist revolution, and organizations such as the Socialist International, which has the supreme value of equality engraved in its heart, must be a driving force in pushing forward this momentous process. And to this end, it is crucial to act on two fronts that I would like to share with all of you. On the one hand, I would like to recall that this is also the cause of men, that the support and the applause are not longer enough. Women have been building their rights for a long time, and it is time for men to start tearing down our privileges, so that men and women can act on a real level playing field. And this is something that we have to do together, hand in hand, because feminism means justice, and justice affects us all. We must fiercely combat the attempts to roll back on women's rights that are happening in different parts of the world. So let's say it out loud. No step backwards, because winning that battle requires more women, many more, in positions of responsibility. Today, only a quarter of the seats in all parliaments are occupied by women. And here, in our own home, in our own house, 63% of the members of the cabinets in Spain are women. We have more women than men ahead of the leading the government in Spain, but we still have plenty of room for improvement. That's why, dear Janet, my commitment with parity is as firm as the steps that we're going to take as Socialist International, so women take the place that they deserve. And for that, dear comrades, I'm counting on you. Secretary General, dear Benedicta Lassi, you are already a symbol of the new time in which we will work hand in hand to break down barriers and to scatter the glass ceilings. And it is an honor for the Socialist International to have an African woman as a Secretary General. Thirdly, it is time, comrades, to fight for a fair economy, replacing the neoliberal model that has prevailed in recent decades, because there is no manifest destiny that condemns a country to eternal poverty. There is no reason why misery should be chronified into eternity in whole regions of Africa, Asia, or America, or in Europe, and even in our own societies. Accepting this fact as inevitable makes us complicit in the idleness. And as a socialist, I refuse to believe that we can do nothing and that humanity, with all of its wealth of knowledge and development, is not capable of correcting such lacerating imbalances that we have to approach. Because we have to comply with the 2030 agenda that was mentioned before by José Luis. The destiny of human being at birth cannot be conditioned by the tyranny of chance. A girl in Sahel in Mali should not be condemned just because of the fact that she's been born there. A child growing up in Central America or in any of the worst neighborhoods in Spain should not see hers of her dreams crippled by violence on the streets or that trafficking their networks or poverty, social exclusion, and misery. We are socialists because we do not accept the dictatorship of chance and because we believe in the value of politics to fight social injustice. And to combat this injustice, this social injustice, we also fight those who hide their wealth in tax havens. And we tell them that the rights, as I heard a long time ago, to a high representative of the European Union, Pepe Borrell, we tell them that rights, the health of our loved ones, the education of our sons and daughters, the rights of the workers and the welfare of our elders are rights that demand dignity and will never be commodities to be traded. The economy must serve the people and the planet and not the other way around. The figures are unbearable. More than 350 million children today live in extreme poverty. 44 million suffer from severe malnutrition in a world that wastes billions of tons of food a year, almost 3 million tons a day. Solving this tragedy will cost a mere 0.3% of global GDP in 2021. A quarter what multinationals are evading. Therefore, what I want to say by this is that there is an alternative. It's just a question of values, principles, and decision, of political will. The way towards equality is the path towards fair forms of redistribution. Take a look at a figure that I took a look at yesterday. In 2019, multinational corporations transfer, remember this figure, $969 billion of profits to tax havens. $969 billion. Transfer to tax havens by multinational corporations. This means that countries collected, on average, 10% less in corporate tax that they should have done. So stopping this drain of resources requires multilateral action. This was demonstrated when in 2021, 136 countries, amongst them Spain, approved the implementation of a minimum 15% corporate tax rate from 2023. This has been one of the first steps that must be followed by many others, and for which we will work at Socialist International, with measures to ensure a global trade based on fair and clearly defined rules, with form of financing for developing countries that will contribute do its development in a real way rather than becoming heavy mortgages on the future. At this moment in which monetary policies are hardening, the most developed countries have to open our doors to a review of the public debt of developing countries, of the countries that are suffering the consequences of climate emergency and also of the crisis derived from the pandemic. Fourthly, dear comrades, Socialist International must have a leading voice in the fight for decent work and labor rights. It is absolutely essential. It is absolutely essential because we have to remember where we come from in order to know where we're going. The struggle for decent work was the embryo from which the Socialist International was born. And I have to tell you that in Spain, thanks to the labor reform approved by my government and agreed upon by the social agents, we've been able to advance like we've never advanced in the last 40 years in stability and dignity at work. We have put collective dialogue at the core of the industrial relationship. So I call on the COE to sit with the trade unions to reach a wage agreement that will give security to all of our workers. With all this business association, we're going to work at Socialist International in 3 directions in the spheres. Firstly, by promoting the adoption of trade clauses that will require compliance with universal minimum labor standards. Secondly, by strengthening the work of multilateral institutions of the United Nations in the defense of labor right and fair trade. And thirdly, by ensuring the extension of these rights to the jobs generated by technological and digital revolution.
Dear colleagues, the Industrial Revolution gave birth to a vision of labor dignity, and the technological revolution is a great opportunity to deepen and consolidate those labor rights. We have the duty to avail of this great technological leap to democratize its benefits globally. The division of labor cannot consolidate a world at different speeds, with countries being left out of change that must above all mean more and better jobs globally. That will also be the task of this new directorate. And fifthly, last but not least, we're witnessing a crucial historical moment in the defense of democracy and civil rights. In the last decade, the number of countries with recognizably democratic regimes has fallen by 20%. The number of citizens with full rights has fallen by half. And it is here that, with full awareness, in my opinion, we must make use of the extraordinary political and intellectual legacy of our organization. Women and men who, with their words, thoughts and actions, inspire us to uphold the cause of freedom and dignity in the face of tyranny and autocracy. We're aware that democracy obviously requires certain material conditions which are also the material conditions of human dignity. But to have a strong democracy, we require powerful citizenship. That means citizenship free from poverty and ignorance, citizenship protected from the misfortunes of life. That means that freedom can never be the price that we have to pay for welfare, because without freedom, there is no welfare. Ideas change the world, for better and for worse. Ideas that are not abstractions, but completely condition every aspect of the lives of millions of people. We aspire to representing our countries. That's why, altogether, we need to make the Socialist International a great ideological platform that contributes to the improvement and growth of democracy on all continents of the planet. Because at the end of the day, the old principles of liberty, equality and fraternity that inspired socialism and the French Revolution and the socialist humanism are still valid today more than ever, because we're the guarantors of achievements which unfortunately are not irreversible. We could ask to women in the USA with the solution of the Supreme Court, or girls and women in Afghanistan, or also what's happening in many other parts of the world. Advancement progress is not irreversible. That's what we need to clearly know, that democracy is defended every single day. We are the custodians of a unique legacy. Our ideology in history has improved the material and spiritual conditions as well as the spiritual conditions of the societies thanks to democratic socialism. We don't feel better than anyone because of being socialists, social democrats or laborists. But we need to admit the social democracy, socialism and laborism makes a better world. And we are proud to look back and recognize ourselves in a tradition that has successfully countered the offensives of neoliberalism and reactionary nationalism, ideologies that respond to the recent failures by returning to a past full of isolation, lack of solidarity and conflict between nations, as we unfortunately see nowadays. But today, we're not here to recreate the achievements of the past or the advancement of the social democratic ideal as created by the response to the pandemic or the consequences of the war in Ukraine. We are here to forge the socialism that comes from hope and not from pessimism, from ambition and not from conformism, from illusion and not from resentment. We are here to respond as social democrats to the great challenges of our time, with the climate emergency as a top priority. The colleagues think that responding should be done with accurate diagnosis, and we'll also do that to the Socialist International with specific proposals that take on board the plurality of our organisation, such as the Socialist International is strong and representative, taking on board the diversity and particularities of each region that make it up. The colleagues who come from parties outside of Europe, in me you will not have a Eurocentric president of the Socialist International. Proposals to create wealth and opportunities in every corner of the planet in a sustainable and less unequal way. Proposals for renewing the generational pact with young people. The young people, thank you, Yussi, for the work you do. Young people whom I would like to address to conclude this speech. The Italian writer, Claudio Magris, says that utopia means not giving up on things as they are, but rather fighting for things as they should be. To all young people, I call on you to fight for that, for things as they should be in a world full of uncertainties. Many people insist on calling you, young people, the glass generation, and they question your capacity for sacrifice. They seem to be unaware of your true strength because your whole lives have been marked by economic crisis, financial crisis, and now a devastating pandemic. And on top of all that, the shadow of war. That is why, more than a generation of glass, you are the generation of hope. Hope. Because it will be you who will put an end to hunger and poverty in the world. You will be the ones who stop the climate emergency. You'll be the ones who are finding cures for terrible diseases nowadays. And you will lead humanity to new frontiers. So do not let anyone tell you that your destiny is to live worse than your parents, because it is not true. It is in your hand that you have the hope of doing what gave meaning to democratic socialism, to social democracy, to laborism, from the day we were born, and to which today in Madrid I would like to call you and finish with this. Our purpose is just to make a better world. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Thank you, Socialist International.